How are you guys doing? Today is Thursday, April 28th, 2022. I'm James Sims, and for this episode of The Elite, I'm going to do an elite individual profile on Denzel Ward. The elite cornerback for the Cleveland Browns is now 25, and for this episode, I'm going to zoom in and look at how he's been able to impact the league on a micro level, game in and game out for his teams, even at Ohio State. And then I'm, of course, going to zoom out and look at how he was able to impact football, of course, from a macro level, considering he's just a cornerback who really kind of sticks to doing what he does. And I do think that he is one of the cornerbacks that is advancing this game. And of course, I like to go into my spiel about how there are hundreds of thousands of of people that are trying to be professional athletes that are trying to be in his position. And considering he's continually shown up and he's given people no reason to really doubt his abilities, I do think that Denzel Ward, when he really gets down to it and when he really gets into his zone, is the real deal. And the wild thing is, he's from Cleveland. He's originally Cleveland born and raised. He stands at about 5'11". He's about 190 pounds. He's a little slimmer than you'd expect. He's slimmer than the wide receivers he goes up against. But I guess what really keeps him in this discussion is that he's incredibly agile and very nimble. He can really move and switch his direction at the drop of a hat. Not to mention that he just has a mental edge that he really brings to a game. And I imagine if he's really been that type of cornerback his entire life. He went to Ohio State, of course, that comes with that program as well. But I do think a lot of what Denzel Ward brings to a game, most of it is what he does pregame preparation, and you can see what he does in the game, and you can see how it is a result of gradually working at what he feels like are holes in his game. And I think that even now he's kind of patching up holes, and even now, even though I would say that he's still working on becoming a better player, he is a very complete corner at this time in his career. So I kind of went really long into that one, but to digress, getting into his story, after originally coming out of Cleveland, he would go and get recruited by Urban Meyer to play at Ohio State. His very first season that he would go on to play at Ohio State would go on to be his freshman season in 2015. And his freshman season would be his age 18 season. So being an 18-year-old and even getting a chance to play for Ohio State in itself is a very huge opportunity. He would go on to play in he would play in 11 of the games, but he would start in 5 of them. But looking at how he would fare in that 2015 season, Denzel Ward would go on to finish with 7 tackles on the year, and he would go on to at least make a little bit of a difference. Because, of course, even getting any lick of playing time as a freshman kind of means that you're kind of onto something. But that season would end as Ohio State would go on to win the Fiesta Bowl versus Notre Dame to end up as a top 4 team as they finished outside of the college football playoff that year. His second year at Ohio State would be his sophomore season, of course, as that would be his age 19 season with the team. He would go on to play 10 games as a sophomore, as he would go on to work his way into being more of a starting role player. He would go on to finish with 23 tackles on that season as he even defended 9 passes. He'll be a very big part in Ohio State going all the way to the Fiesta Bowl again, the college football playoff semi, where they ended up getting shellacked 31-0 by Clemson when Clemson had Deshaun Watson. But of course, following that 2016 season, Denzel Ward would return to Ohio State for his junior season, the season where I believe he kind of really stood out as a player on his own. As a junior, he would go on to start 11 games, playing for an Ohio State Buckeyes team that would finish with a 12-2 record. They would go all the way to the Cotton Bowl Classic, where they would go on to beat USC. But in that season, Denzel Ward would have 37 tackles in those 11 games. He would finish with 2 tackles for loss. He had 15 passes defended, and he would go on to finish with 2 interceptions on the year, helping Ohio State finish as a top 5 team in the nation. He would be named to the first team All Big Ten, and he would be named a consensus All-American at the cornerback position in his lone season where he was a full-time starter. And following, of course, his Cotton Bowl performance, or after, I guess, following the Cotton Bowl, in which he didn't play in, he would go on to be a top 5 pick. He was the 4th overall pick in the 2018 NFL draft. He was the top defensive player and the top cornerback taken, under names such as Baker Mayfield, Saquon Barkley, and Sam Darnold. Looking at other players that were taken in this draft, Quentin Nelson, the right guard for the Indianapolis Colts, was taken with the 6th pick. Josh Allen, the elite starting quarterback for the Buffalo Bills, was taken with the 7th pick in this draft. Looking at DBs, Minkah Fitzpatrick who's currently an elite safety for the Steelers, was taken with the 11th pick in this draft. Tremaine Edmonds from the Bills, Derwin James, who's currently on the Chargers, also making up incredibly great players that were in this round. Not to mention that this round was finished off by an eventual NFL MVP, Lamar Jackson. So, of course, he would be the 4th overall pick in this very star-studded NFL draft, where a lot of these players are very big contributors now, and Denzel Ward is definitely one of them. He would go on to be drafted by the Cleveland Browns with the 4th overall pick, and he has been a member of the Cleveland Browns ever since. His very first season with the Cleveland Browns was his age 21 season back in 2018. He would go on to start 12 of the 13 games he played for a Cleveland Browns team that would finish with a 7-8-1 record. This was the season where Hugh Jackson got fired in the middle of the season, and then Greg Williams would have to fill in for the second half. In this season, Denzel Ward would go on to finish with 53 tackles on the year. He would go on to defend 11 passes. He would finish with 3 interceptions on the year, which is tied for the most he had in a season. Like I said, he forced a fumble. He would pick up a career high in fumble recoveries, as he had 2 of them. And he would also, of course, record 5 tackles for loss, if I didn't say that earlier. In his rookie season, Denzel Ward would, of course, make the all-rookie team, and he would be named a Pro Bowler in just his rookie season after putting together an amazing season for a Cleveland Browns team that just completely missed the playoffs. Following that, Denzel Ward would return for his 2nd season with the team in his age 22 year in 2019. In 2019, he would go on to start all 12 of the games he played in a season where the Cleveland Browns would go 6-10. They had 1 less win than the prior season. And in the 12 games he played, Denzel Ward would finish with about 44 tackles, 9 less than his rookie season. He would finish with a couple of interceptions. He would go on to return his very first pick 6 of his career in 2019. He would actually return it against Andy Dalton, and he would go on to finish with a fumble recovery for the year as well. And then following that season, he, of course, would return to the Browns for his 3rd season in the team, his age 23 season. This was also the season where they had no fans in the stands because of COVID. In that season, he would go on to start 12 games for the 3rd year in a row for a Cleveland Browns team that would finish with an 11-5 record. This would be Kevin Stefanski's first year as coach. He would win the Coach of the Year, as the Browns had made the playoffs for the first time since 2002, and they had won a playoff game for the first time since 1994. So just to give a sense of how historic that season was for the franchise. On the defensive side, Denzel Ward would still go on to finish with 46 tackles. He recorded a tackle for loss. He would go on to finish with 2 interceptions, and he also forced a fumble. He would finish with a career high in passes defended, as he had 18 of them. He would miss out on the Pro Bowl for the 2nd year in a row, but he was effectively the corner that the Browns wanted him to be. And then following that season, he would return for the most recent season that he's played with the Cleveland Browns, his age 24 season in this past 2021 season. The very first season in which the NFL had teams play 17 games instead of 16. In his 4th season in the league, Denzel Ward would start all 15 of the games he played, the most amount of games he's played in an NFL season, for a Cleveland Browns team that would go 8-9. They finished with the 3rd best record in their division and would go on to miss the playoffs. In this season, Denzel Ward would go on to finish with 43 tackles, which is the least amount of tackles that he's ever put together in his 4 seasons. He would record half of a sack, the first time that he would be involved in a sack all year. He would go on to finish with 3 interceptions, tied with his rookie season for the most he's had. He had a 99-yard pick six, which of course would be the longest pick six of the year. He would go on to be named a Pro Bowler for the second time in his 4-year career, after the first time he was named was his rookie season. And I do think that he is a player that is most definitely coming into his own, and I do not think that this is the end of Denzel Ward's prime. I do think that he is a player that's continually getting better, and we are right now in the offseason as the Browns went on to miss the playoffs that season. But it's very interesting to see how he's going to line up on the same defense with Myles Garrett, knowing that he's going to be putting pressure on him. And I do think that it'll be interesting to see what he does. If he does stay with the Cleveland Browns, as of right now, he is a member of the team. And right now, he is currently wearing number 21. And he's originally a Cleveland kid, so I don't see him really leaving for any other reason. But I think it'll be very interesting. I can't really tell right now. The one thing I can tell is that Denzel Ward is one of the elite defensive players in the NFL. And he was an elite player once he got on that stage, once that moment was his as a junior at Ohio State. And I can't wait to see what he does over this next year. Once all of today's exhibitions and matchups are done, I'm going to come back tomorrow on Friday, April 29th. And hopefully by this time next year, I'll have a lot more to talk about when it comes to Denzel Ward, knock on wood. But with that said, I want to thank everyone for listening to all 11 minutes of this piece. I want to thank the ESPN, the NFL, the Football Reference websites for giving me what I needed, because without those facts and figures, I would not be able to do this episode. So thanks to them, and I want to once again thank everyone else. I do want to wish Denzel Ward a happy 25th birthday. I do hope all is well, and even though it's going to be late when you get when everyone hears this, I do still think it's worth noting that Denzel Ward is an elite football player coming into this upcoming season. Thanks for listening. I do hope all is well, and I will catch you with more tomorrow. Thanks for listening to my piece, and peace out.